The first one is, so how can private landlords apply past 2030 quality principles without the high administrative overhead? Because that is usually quite, in depth, isn't it, Jamie, the past 2035? So how could that more flexibly be applied to the private rented sector?
It is a really good question, and PAS is about a whole house approach, but there is a lot of compliance that is required as far as PAS 2035 to deliver it to the letter of the law from compliance. And what I mean by that, you have to do a retro assessment on a property to assess that whole house approach and what is required to achieve it to a certain standard. It's about ensuring that the design is done, a retro design on the property, and sitting behind all of the retro assessment and the retro design is something called a retro coordination, which is essentially someone that's marking all of those things to ensure that everything is recommended in the right order, it's designed correctly, and it is delivered to the right standard. But that compliance does come at a cost, which is required as far as the funding market is concerned, which is often a big driver, as I've suggested, in the social housing market. As far as private properties is concerned, the same principles can still apply. PAS, a big element of PAS is about ventilating properties properly. What recommendations a retro assessment may identify can be identified by other means as well. But taking a fabric first approach is important, but you don't need to necessarily go to the cost of a retro assessment to be able to do that. You can identify that from other means. Likewise, the design, the coordination. You can follow the same principles of PAS without having those compliance requirements that are in place if it is being paid for from someone's capital funds to be able to do so. So understanding what the requirements are of PAS, understanding your properties, what needs to be, and applying those same principles will allow you to install the property from a fabric first approach, purpose first of all, and ventilating the property through mechanical ventilation, through door undercuts, trickle vents on your windows is all good practice which PAS adheres to, but you don't necessarily need to go to the compliance cost to ensure that it's robust as far as that is concerned.
I think that's really important because a retrofit assessment could cost for 350, 400, 500 pounds. Landlords aren't going to be, private landlords probably aren't going to be willing to sort of spend that up front, are they? So particularly if funding's not available for it. So I think that is
it is most definitely the case. And one thing to add, not all of the social landlords that we work with they deliver to something which is referred to as sensible PAS in the industry, which is it's about delivering to the right standard, the same standard, but if they're paying for it for their own capital, it doesn't necessarily need to have the expense of the retro assessment and the process that follows.